So our special guest today, Irene Levy Baker, is the author of 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia Before You Die, both the first and second editions, and also Unique Eats and Eateries of Philadelphia. Irene is the owner of Spotlight Public Relations, a firm specializing in restaurants and hospitality. Prior to opening her firm, she spent many years working at the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau. Irene is always hungry for adventures that will surprise and delight her readers, so we're looking forward to hearing about them. And let's see, you can follow her on or at 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia on Facebook and Instagram, at 100 Philly on Twitter. We are posting a link for a discount code if you're interested in purchasing her book in the chat. So with that, Irene, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Ben.
Sure.
I like to think I'm all about fun, especially now. My kids may disagree with that, but I like to think it's true. I think we can all agree that 2020 has not been the best year, especially to launch a book with a title like this. A friend of mine sort of kiddingly suggested I change the title to something more like this. But no matter what you call it, what gives a book a fighting chance is what's between the front and the back cover. And what's between the front and the back cover of this book are 100 staycation ideas. Now, we live in Philadelphia, so we don't think of it as a staycation spot, but lots of people do. Condé Nast Traveler called Philadelphia one of the best, or I'm sorry, National Geographic Traveler called Philadelphia one of the best places to visit. And it was the only US city on the list. Why? Because of all the wonderful things to do in Philadelphia, including lots of new things, like the Comcast Technology Tower. It's the highest skyscraper between New York and Chicago. And at the very top is the new Four Seasons Hotel. And at the very top of that is John George Restaurant and Sky High Bar. If you haven't been there yet, I would say that this is the place to take someone if you want to impress them. Now, it's closed right now because inside dining is closed in Philadelphia, but I imagine it won't be that long before it reopens again. And when it does, I have a tip for you. My books are full of tips, and my tip for this place is find out when sunset's going to be, make your reservation just before sunset so you can see the phenomenal views during the day. Watch the sunset and then see the nighttime lights as well. Now, in addition to new places that I'll be talking about today, the city is full of lesser known places. What you're looking at here is Cowtown Rodeo, the view of the Schuylkill River from Laurel Hill Cemetery, and Legoland. Today, I'm going to be telling you why there's no place like home. I'll be offering some staycation ideas. And as a bonus, when you do a staycation, it really helps local businesses. I'll be touching on new attractions, lesser known sites, good places to social distance, how we can help our restaurants survive, and some of those tips are good for other small businesses as well. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. People are surprised to hear that even though I write books about Philadelphia, I'm a Philadelphian by choice, not by birth. I've lived in Ohio, Michigan, North Carolina, Virginia, Pittsburgh, then Philadelphia. But I've been here a good long time. I moved here in 1991 and immediately started working for the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau. After doing that for nearly a decade, I started my own PR firm, and I specialize in restaurants and hospitality. And that's how I got to a lot of the places in the book and learned a lot of tips in the book. About 5 years ago, I was approached by Reedy Press, my publisher, and they asked me to write the first 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia book. That was so much fun that when they came back and asked me to write Unique Eats and Eateries of Philadelphia, I was all in. Unique Eats and Eateries tells the sweet and spicy stories behind Philadelphia restaurants. Love stories, bungled mob hits, restaurants that survived fires, earthquakes, and even prohibition. If you ask me during Q&A, I'm happy to share some stories from that book with you. But today, we're here to talk about the second edition of 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia. That's the one with the Eagles green cover. And after 4 years after writing the first one, it was clear that there was enough new in Philadelphia that there was a compelling need to write a second edition. And in this edition, I also included lots of lesser known things that even longtime Philadelphians may not know about. Now, if you write books like this, you can imagine that my friends, my family, my coworkers are constantly asking me, where should I take my kids over break or my grandkids when they come to visit? Where should I take my in-laws? Where should I take my college roommate? And today, I'm going to share with you the secrets I share with them. Take your kids or your grandkids to Legoland. What you're looking at here is a skyline of Philadelphia built of 1.5 million Legos. And Legoland is full of charming places like this. You can turn a corner and happen upon a life-size animal made of Legos. And there's a 4D theater. What does 4D mean? It means that when the wind blows in the movie, you can feel it. And when it rains in the movie, you can feel that too. What I like about Legoland is that kids can use their gross motor skills to take step-by-step Lego making lessons if they're inclined. Or they can run through a laser beam obstacle course and up a giant pirate ship. And if that doesn't tire them out, take them to Cowtown Rodeo. If you grew up in the Northeast and the only rodeo that you have ever seen is on TV, you are in for a treat. Cowtown Rodeo is in Piles Grove, New Jersey, just 45 minutes from Center City. And there is steer wrestling and bull riding and cowboy hat and horse racing. If the only time you've ever worn your cowboy hat is on Halloween, this is a place you could wear it and no one will look at you sideways. It's old-fashioned Americana and it is super fun. Now, what if your kids or your grandkids are teenagers? I suggest taking them to Franklin Square, one of the 5 original squares designed by William Penn when he designed the city. What I like about Franklin Square is the mini golf course, where all the obstacles are Philadelphia icons. What you're looking at here are the Liberty Bell, the Art Museum steps, also known as the Rocky Steps. You'll also find Elfreth's Alley, the Love Statue, the Chinese Friendship Gate. There's not a teen who's ever been to the Jersey Shore that doesn't love putt-putt. So go ahead and play putt-putt. And when you do, take your kid's picture next to each icon. And then you can turn your day into a scavenger hunt by going to each of the real things to take a second picture. This is a picture of me on top of the Love statue at Franklin Square, and then near the real Love statue. There's not a teen alive that's not looking for good Instagram posts, and suddenly you'll have them dying to go to the Liberty Bell, Independence Hall, the Chinese Friendship Gate, Elfreth's Alley, and all the places you wanted to show them in the first place. Now, another place you might like going with a teen is the Fashion District, which opened shortly before the pandemic began. This is where Market East used to be. It's bigger, it's brighter. There are interesting stores like the beef jerky store and the Seen on TV store, but that's not why I recommend it to take your teen. This is Wonder Space. It's an interactive art gallery that's always going to be changing. There's virtual reality, there's optical illusions, and things like this. Now, what if your visitor isn't a teen, but it's your in-laws? I recommend taking them to the Museum of the American Revolution. This is the newest museum in the historic district. It opened in 2017. And to me, it pulls together everything else in the historic district because it looks at the American Revolution, why we fought the battle, how we fought the battles, and it looks at phrases like all men were created equal from the perspective of women, Blacks, and Native Americans. I recommend that you start with the brief orientation, just to catch up and remember everything you might have learned in middle school American history class, and end in the real theater where you can see the real tent, that George Washington slept in. It is downright inspiring. Now, if your in-laws are exceptionally cool like mine, or if your college roommate's coming to visit, I suggest taking them to one of Philadelphia's secret speakeasies. There's a whole list of secret speakeasies in the book, and my favorite is Hop Sing Laundromat. Now, I'm guessing that you're looking at this and thinking, that doesn't look like much, but that's intentional. There is no sign, you just have to know where it is. And this one is at 1029 Race Street in Chinatown. You ring the bell that's next to the gate. And if you're wearing a baseball cap or shorts or flip-flops,
This is Dennis Tanner.
you're not going to be able to get in. But if you do get in and you take out a camera to take a picture of something, you're going to be kicked out. Furthermore, you will be added to a list of people who are banned for life. Last time I checked, there were 1,600 people on that list, and you do not want to be on it. Let me tell you why. Condé Nast called Hop Sing Laundromat not the best bar in the city, not the best bar in the state, not even the best bar in the country, but the best bar in the world. Now, I don't want to be put on that list of people who are banned for life, but I'm a big fan of CCPA, so I'm going to live a little dangerously and share the pictures with you. This is what it looks like inside. All the tables are spaced far apart. That is not for social distancing. That was before social distancing was a thing. That's for privacy. And all of the drinks are made from unusual high-end liquors in unusual combinations with fresh infusions and fresh juices. And this is just one of the secret speakeasies in the city. There's another one in Midtown Village that's in a barber shop that's partially owned by Bryce Harper from the Phillies. You could get your hair cut there and if you didn't know to cut through the barber shop, you would never see the speakeasy behind it. If you ask me during the Q&A, I'll tell you about some more secret speakeasies. But I promise to share with you some good places to social distance. What you're looking at in the upper right-hand corner is Laurel Hill Cemetery. Laurel Hill is a historic cemetery in Fairmount Park, just off Kelly Drive. And there are Civil War generals buried there. There are victims from the Titanic buried there, and people with names like Wanamaker, Strawbridge, and Rittenhouse. What you're looking at here is a tombstone of Harry Callis, the former Phillies announcer. Yeah, if you think it's shaped like a stone microphone, you're right, it is. And it's surrounded by seats from the vet. Laurel Hill is full of interesting tombstones that are like works of art. And the views of the Schuylkill are beautiful. They encourage people to come and social distance there and walk around. The gates are open from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and there's hardly anyone there. That's probably my number one spot for going for social distancing. Below that, you can see is a mural. Does anybody know where this mural is? I see a couple people nodding their heads. This mural is on Spruce Street at about 13th, on the side of the building that houses Vetri Restaurant, the Italian restaurant that's known nationally. It's a picture of an Italian countryside. I don't know if you ever noticed, but on the right side above the white van, the artist has painted Mark Vetri into the mural. This is the kind of thing you learn when you take a mural arts tour. Philadelphia is the mural arts capital of the world. We have almost 4,000 murals. Each one brings neighborhoods together and can really transform neighborhoods. You learn about that on a mural arts tour. Until very recently, mural arts was offering socially distanced tours, and they may start doing that again when they're allowed. But in the meantime, you can take a self-guided tour using tours that are found on their website. You can take a virtual tour, which you can find on their website, or you can download a phone app that tells you about murals around you in real time as you're walking around the city. Preservation Alliance also offers incredible tours, mostly given by retired architects. And they focus on the history and the architecture in different neighborhoods. Rittenhouse East, Rittenhouse West, Washington Square, Queen Village. My favorite one is the Littlest Streets tour that focuses on streets like Delancey, Camac, and Quince. And they were offering socially distant tours until very recently and may do so again. But they also have self-guided tours on the Preservation Alliance website. What I like about these is, even when I take them of my own neighborhood, I learn new things. And suddenly I'm seeing places I walk by all the time with fresh eyes. Other great places to social distance. The Audubon Center out in Millgrove. There's a new John James Audubon Center. It's a birding museum where he spent his early 20s and where he developed his interest in birding. The museum is half about his art and half about birds and the way they are structured, why their beaks are the way they are and their wings. It's an interesting museum, but it's not open right now. But around the museum are 4 miles of birding trails, which are open and are a great place to social distance. They have different kinds of habitats to attract different kinds of birds. And I'm here to tell you, the early bird does get the worm. The earlier you visit, the more birds you will see. Also, the Navy Yard down by the airport. We drive by it all the time on our way to the airport, but it's a great place to walk around. It's huge, there's lots of room to spread out. The ships are interesting to see, and there's a new outdoor art exhibit there. So there's lots of things to stumble upon and great seating areas as well. The John Hines Wildlife Refuge, also by the airport, is a 1,000 acre outdoor trails. And it's in the middle of a residential area. You would never even know it was there if you didn't know it was there. Number 8, college campuses. Philadelphia is home to over 100 colleges and universities. These are designed to be fabulous outdoor spaces, but no one's using them right now. Many colleges are virtual or partially virtual, so they're pretty empty. So no matter where you live, there's probably a college campus near you. I've spent a lot of time walking around the Penn campus. There's a love statue on Locust Walk. There's a statue of Ben Franklin that's larger than life. Last time I was there, he was wearing a surgical mask because he's a smart cookie. Someone at one of my book talks told me there was a biopond there, and I finally found that. That was fun. There's a little waterfall, and I saw some turtles sunning themselves on some rocks. But any campus, Villanova campus or Arcadia, there are campuses all over you can walk around. Sierra Green is a rooftop park on 30th Street between Walnut and Chestnut. If you've ever walked the Schuylkill River banks, you've probably seen the giant screen across the river. Sierra Green is on top of a building, and there's the giant screen, and they show sports games, they show movies. When I was last there, they were showing a Jetsons cartoon marathon. There are food kiosks, there is seating. The views of the Schuylkill River are so pretty that last time I was there, there was a bride and groom taking pictures. It's a cool place to check out. And my tip there is this: the signs point you to the elevator. If you'd rather not get in an elevator right now, there are also steps. The park is on top of a parking garage. There are steps going up the parking garage, 5 stories. Then they are open air, and they will also get you to the top of the parking garage to the park. The Association for Public Art also has self-guided tours on its website of the statues and art around Center City. Another good way to get your steps in and learn something about the city. At a book talk recently, someone told me about americasgardencapital.org. If you're more into gardens than into the city, you can go to that website, and there's a button you can push to find out what gardens are open for touring right now. They keep it updated, and it's a good way to find and discover new gardens both in the city and in the suburbs. Speaking of the suburbs, the Haddonfield Sculpture Tour. Haddonfield is just 20 minutes from Center City. It's a charming town. The main street on Kings Highway is full of restaurants with outdoor seating, a cute little bookstore, and more bakeries, chocolate shops, and ice cream stores than any little town should have, which is one reason I love that town. But they also have a sculpture tour on a website called haddonfieldsculpture.org. There are about 20 sculptures in Haddonfield, some representational, some abstract. And you'll find a giant blue dog right in the middle of downtown. You'll find a larger-than-life postman in front of the post office, a ballerina on the Welcome to Haddonfield sign, and my very favorite part, which is the children's sculpture garden, where you'll find a life-size giraffe and 2 larger-than-life animals, a rabbit and a turtle, designed by Eric Berg. If his name sounds familiar to anyone, that's because he's also the artist that made the Drexel Dragon, the bears and the turtles in Fiddler Square, and Filbert the pig at Reading Terminal Market. The whole tour is about 0.6 of a mile, so it's easily walkable, and it takes 2 to 3 hours. And a little birdie recently told me, and that little birdie's name is Ben Frank, that the Philadelphia Zoo is a good place to social distance right now. It's open on the weekend, the outside areas are open, and I'm told that the animals miss seeing the people. It made me both happy and sad to hear that. Happy that we amuse the animals as much as they amuse us, and a little sad that they're lonely. So it makes it a great place to visit right now. Now, I'd also like to share with you some tips on how we can help restaurants survive. And some of these tips will apply to all small businesses. My first few tips are for people who are eating in restaurants right now. My next tips will be for people who aren't eating in restaurants, but are doing takeout. My first tip is, when I go to a restaurant, I wear a mask anytime I'm there that I'm not actively putting food or drink in my mouth. Now, I know that's extreme for some people, but it's very important to wear a mask when you order, when your plates are delivered, and when your plates are cleared, or anytime restaurant staff is near you, because we need to keep our restaurant staff healthy if the restaurants are going to stay open. And of course, they're keeping us healthy, we need to keep them healthy too. Number 2, now is not the time to linger. It's important to order, eat, and go. The restaurants are only going to survive if they can turn tables, because they have way fewer tables, most of them, than they typically do. So order, eat, and go. I have one friend who even gets dessert to go and then eats it on the way home in the park, or when she gets home later that night, or for breakfast the next morning. Nothing wrong with that. Also, over order. If you and your companion can't decide which appetizer to get both. If you don't typically order dessert, now isn't you have an excuse to splurge. So, or get 2 dinners, one to eat tonight at the restaurant and one to go to eat tomorrow night. You really help the restaurant when you do that, and you get 2 restaurant dinners out of your visit. Next, over tip. The servers are having an exceedingly hard time making a living right now. So if you can afford to over tip, please do. Now, I know some of these tips are expensive, so I have some tips that are free that I'll get to as well. My last tip, if you're eating in restaurants, is think outside 7 o'clock at Saturday night. The restaurants can fill those tables. They need help filling the early shift and the late shift. So make your reservations at 5 or 5:30, at 8 or 8:15, especially on a weeknight when they're less likely to fill tables. That's good for the restaurants, and it's good for you too, because you're being exposed to fewer people. Now, what if you're only doing takeout? In that case, if you can possibly pick up instead of having delivery, do that. Because if you contact Grubhub or Caviar and go through them, the restaurant has to share their very tiny profit with the delivery service. So it really helps the restaurant if you can go direct. Number 2, buy gift certificates and save them until the restaurants are back on their feet. Don't use them now. Right now, several restaurants are offering bonus gift certificates if you buy them as gifts. Some of those deals were just for Black Friday and Thanksgiving weekend. But I've started to keep a list of restaurants that are offering bonuses. If you buy 100, they'll give you 25 or 50. And these are all through the end of the year. Charlie Was a Sinner, which is a vegan restaurant in Midtown Village. All of the Star restaurants, and there's like 20 of them. If you Google it, it's Star with 2 R's. Soraya, which is a Lebanese restaurant in Fishtown, which has a huge garden, is doing a great job social distancing and has awesome food. Badia Pizzeria, which is one of the best pizzerias in the country, which is located in Fishtown. Estia, which is a Greek restaurant across from the Kimmel Center. And Vernick, which is a nationally known restaurant on Walnut at about 22nd Street. All of those places are offering bonus gift certificates if you buy one now. My last tip, if you're not eating in restaurants but want to help, is to buy their t-shirts and wear them when you're walking around the city. So you're a walking billboard. This will work for your favorite small business too. Or buy their mug. And if you're drinking coffee on your Zoom calls, be an ambassador for your restaurant. And I did promise 2 tips that cost nothing. One is to write reviews of your favorite restaurants and small businesses on Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor, Facebook. That helps their ranking and doesn't cost you anything. Likewise, if your service is a little slow or things aren't up to par, now might be the time to cut the restaurant a break and not leave a review, because they're trying to figure it out just like everybody else. Number 2, to help restaurants and small businesses, is be social. Follow your favorite local businesses and restaurants on social media. Like, share, and comment on their posts, and that will help them spread their message. Now, my books are full of tips. Tips like where to find secret speakeasies, how to make the most of Restaurant Week, what's the best day to visit a museum, or where's the best place to start, how to get discounts on museums. There are also itineraries like the ones we talked about today. Itineraries with families with young children, families with teens, and things to do for empty nesters, or things if you're on a date. And the things in the books, my 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia book, are in Philadelphia, in Center City, in the suburbs, and in South Jersey. The book is divided into 5 sections: food and drink, sports and recreation, music and entertainment, history and culture, and shopping and fashion. And now that I've told you what's in it, I'd like to tell you why you might need 1 or 2 or 62. You might need 1 because the book is a very good adventure starter. You do not want to sit down at your desk on Monday morning and think, all I did all weekend was laundry. So this will give you adventures. And when you're done reading it, put it on the nightstand in your guest room. So when we can finally have guests again, they can decide where they want to go and you're not forced to be the tour guide. One person even told me she uses it as grandchild bait. She sent it to her granddaughter and said, dog ear the page of the things you want to do with me when you can finally come visit again. You need 2 because they make very good gifts. Good holiday gifts, good retirement gifts, good shore house gifts if you want to be invited back again and again and again. And if you're like me and you're dying to check holiday shopping off your to-do list, you could do that right here. They also have very good business lists. Treat everyone on your virtual team to a book to let them know you appreciate them and that you would like them to get out and de-stress and have a little fun now and then. Real estate agents use them for closing gifts. Comcast uses them for recruiting to get people excited about moving to Philadelphia. And lots of businesses use them as holiday gifts for clients, board members, and employees. If you'd like a copy of the book, you can go to my website, www.100thingstodoinphiladelphia.com. You'll also find a link at the top of the chat box. Why come to me directly rather than going to Amazon? I'll give you 2 reasons. 1, if you use the promo code CCPA, you'll get a discount. And 2, if you come to me, I can sign it for you and I can even personalize it for you. If you go to my website and click on tips, you'll find more tips like the ones I gave you today, as well as over the next couple of weeks, I'm posting a lot of tips about places to see the holiday lights, including free places paired with places to go and get hot chocolate nearby. And for more tips, you'll not only find them on my website, you'll find them on my social media, which Ben mentioned earlier. On Facebook and Instagram, I'm 100 Things to Do in Philadelphia. And on Twitter, I'm 100 Philly. Now I'm going to come back to you and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, either from the chat box or by raising your hand, either like this or electronically. So let's go to the chat box and see what's here.
There was mostly comments and excitement about all the things to do there. I'm not sure if I saw questions.
Nicole has been to Cowtown Rodeo. Cowtown Rodeo is awesome. The Cowtown Rodeo, Sue asked when it's open. It's open on weekend nights in the summer. So hopefully by next summer, we can start going again. It is an outside activity and it's super fun. Oh, and Erica's a fan of Hop Sing Laundromat too. So people ask me if I've been to all 100 things in the book. And I say, no, I've only been to 99. And I only recommend my readers go to 99 because we're not ready to kick the bucket yet. So then they ask me, which one haven't you been to? And I'm telling you, you have to read the book to find out. It's a secret.
Barbara had a question.
Actually, it's just a compliment. Irene, this has been, I mean, I've been to all your talks. I always do. I always buy your books. I'm a huge groupie, but this has been, I mean, this has been so amazing to have something so upbeat and fun and positive and exciting about Center City, and just like this great impetus to get out there again and do things as soon as we can. Thank you so much.
Oh, Barbara, thank you so much. It's so good to see you by Zoom. And people keep saying there's nothing to do, but there is so much to do. And we can still be getting out there and enjoying our city, although we can't do everything we want to do. I'd like to share a story from Unique Eats and Eateries. Would anyone like to hear that? I got a short one. It's about John and Kira's chocolate. Does anyone know their chocolates? They make the bumblebees and the ladybugs.
Oh my God.
You can find them. Yeah, they're really good. You can find them at the farmers markets and at DeBruno Brothers. That book is not a restaurant guide, although it tells you what people serve and what the atmosphere is like. Instead, it tells the stories behind the restaurants, like John and Kira's, which is an eatery. The first month they were in business, they landed on the cover of Gourmet magazine as the best chocolate in the country. And the fact checker called John and said, "Hey, are you guys married?" And John said, "No, but leave it in the issue." And when the first issue came out, he handed it to Kira across the dinner table with a diamond ring taped inside. To me, that is the sweetest story about sweets and makes them even sweeter. I'm going to go to the chat box now and see if there are more questions.
We have 2 raised hands. John, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hey, thank you, Irene. Thanks so much. And this has been a great session. I bought 3 copies of your book just based on this conversation today. I was going to say the CCPA code definitely worked. So
thank you, John.
Hey, my pleasure. Here's the question, which is like when you go to Laurel Hill Cemetery, because
yes.
the grounds are so expansive. Any suggestions as to where to head? I run often and I run up Kelly Drive. So but rather than climbing hills and wander, is there a way that you get in or a way to head?
So I usually just like to lose myself there. I've been there probably a dozen times during the pandemic.
Got it.
And you definitely want to see Harry Callis's grave. Adrian from the Rocky movies.
Right.
Her fictitious grave is also there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. They used it for the movie and then they kept the gravestone.
Wow.
Although someone told me in a recent book talk that the gravestone's in a different place than it was in the movie. So I have to rent the movie again.
Right.
But frankly, it is so beautiful with weeping willow trees and the views and the tombstones that you just go in and lose yourself. And it's not so big that you'll get lost. I mean, you can always find your way back.
Right.
But it's fascinating. And I didn't mention it, but it was on my words. Laurel Hill West, if you live closer to the main lines, another nice place to visit, although not quite as beautiful as the original.
That's great. Irene, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Erica?
Just want to say I love your book. I actually got a copy when I started working at the convention center last year, and I absolutely love it. Question though, are there any like igloo restaurants around anywhere? Because I was trying to see like if there were any that Philadelphia offered.
Yeah, they have igloos at Harper's Garden, which is on 18th Street between Market and Chestnut. I recently ate at one, and you want to go with people who are in your bubble, but you are separated from every other igloo. There were people on either sides, but we had a separate we were totally separated, and it was heated enough that we could actually, I actually was taking off layers. And we left our door open just for more air coming in, and still it was nicely heated. We were comfortable, and the food's great. And for anyone who hasn't been in Center City lately that's working from their suburban home, a lot of restaurants have built chalets now, some of them beautiful with heat, with chandeliers, some with windows or plastic sheeting dividing people, some without. But there's a lot of them. Sue has pointed out that Laurel Hill also offers tours, which is true. Their tours are awesome. And they have a really good sense of humor. They'll tell you some of the fun stories behind the people. They call them their horizontal residents. But they also tell you they welcome vertical residents. That means people who are standing upright.
I wonder if anybody has a secret place that they know about that maybe Irene doesn't know about. If anybody wants to share.
I actually had something that it made me on the outdoor places, Irene, that you mentioned. I recently went to Grounds for Sculpture over in Hamilton.
Yes.
And I had always wanted to go there, and maybe it was in your first edition book, and that's what gave me, I can't remember, but it was a great place to go. You just bundle up even now as it's getting cold and go. It exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, the grounds for sculpture are not in my books because they're a little far from Philadelphia. They're over an hour. But they are, it's an awesome garden, and they recreate famous paintings in the garden in real life. And it's just awesome. So I would highly recommend it. It's definitely a good place to walk around. Dennis, did you have a question?
Yeah. I found somebody brought me this past weekend, Lynn and I, to Graffiti Park, which it was unbelievable. I must have taken 100 pictures. It's in Philly, but it's a little bit off the beaten track. I'm sure you've been there.
I have actually not been there, but Lynn emailed me and told me about it. And that's where I get some of my best ideas, is from people. So it is on my list of things to check out. And if I like it as much as you guys did, it will definitely be added to my list of places to social distance.
Do you know
I've read about it for years, but I thought that for a while, there was no trespassing signs and you couldn't see it. But yeah, Lynn said you can go now, so I'm really excited to see it.
It's on the river, just north of the casino, maybe half a mile north of the casino. You have to ask someone, because it's not like a big entrance to go in. You got to sort of walk down a dirt path for 50 yards. It's well worth it. I could talk about it for an hour, but it's well worth seeing.
I'm sure that we're all going to bump into each other there on Saturday now.
Nice day.
But I'm not going to get too close, and I'm going to be wearing a mask.
Yeah, of course. A lot of great ideas today. Most of them I haven't heard of.
That's tough. If I can stump you, Dennis, I've done my job. I'm happy to tell you another story, or if you would like to, if anyone has questions, or if you want to go to networking, Ben, up to you.
We can do another story if you have.
Sure. Let me tell you the story about Portobello Restaurant in Kennett Square. This is a story from the Unique Eats and Eateries book. I went to Kennett Square to see the mushroom farms, and I stopped for lunch at Portobello Restaurant, which is a mushroom-centric restaurant, of course. Loved it, thought, wow, I'd love to put them in my book. I wonder what their story is. So after lunch, I sat down with the chef, Brett Hulbert, and his wife, Sandra, and they started telling me about Brett's background in catering and casinos, and it was nice, but super boring. And I was a little disappointed they had no story. And then someone walked by behind me in the window, and Sandra ran outside to give him a hug. This was pre-COVID. And then she came back in and she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but I had to give him a hug because that was Mr. King." So I said, "Well, who's Mr. King?" And she said, the first week they opened, Mr. King came in and he had dinner and he demanded to see the owner. And she was quaking in her boots because she knew in a small town like Kennett Square, if they got bad reviews and people didn't like them or bad word of mouth, they would never survive. So she and Brett went out to talk to Mr. King. And he said, "I just finished my dinner and I'm here to tell you, I don't think I'll be back." And Sandra was near tears. And then he said, "I'm 85 years old. I have cancer. I don't think I'm going to be around that long." And then she really was near tears. So he broke out in song and he's saying, "You'll never walk alone." And everyone in the restaurant turned around and applauded. And then she threw her arms around him and said, "I think with that spirit, you're going to kick this cancer. And when you do, I'm going to throw you a 90th birthday party." Sure enough, Mr. King beat the cancer, turned 90, and they threw him a giant birthday party, and his family flew in from all over the country to be there. I said, "Bingo, there's your story." And there's a picture of Mr. King with his 90th birthday cake at Portobello Restaurant in the book. Kismet that he happened to walk by when I was there, and we found their story. That's one of my favorites.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Bill, I remember meeting you at past CCPA events.
Yes, we did meet, Irene. And
Yep.
I do
You
have
might
your
even be
book.
connected on LinkedIn.
I think we are. I have your
I think
book.
we are.
So if I put you on hold so I could go and get it and show the book, but it's 2 floors down, and I was losing my connection with my earbuds, so I came back up. But it was very nicely engraved by yourself, and I do refer to it. It's really a great topic tumbler when you have visitors over, and we just open the book and go to a certain section. I have not yet been to the speakeasy at Hop Sing. My husband wants to go there in the worst way, and so we are going to get down there. But I'm looking forward. It's got a lot of good reviews, and all
Well,
your
you're
stuff
not going
is
to get
sound.
there just yet.
No,
it's not open
we won't
just
go
yet.
down till
Leia's
yeah.
not willing to open.
Yeah.
But that's definitely something to put on your bucket list.
Yes,
There are
it's been on there.
There are 2 playhouses that have speakeasies, by the way. One is the Mask and Wig Club, which is the playhouse on Kamak owned by Penn. The shows are phenomenal, clever, funny, but you can only go to the speakeasy there if you go to a show. And you can only go to a show if you went to Penn or get invited from someone who goes to Penn. The second speakeasy in a playhouse is in a playhouse in Rittenhouse on a tiny street. And there are 2 ways to get in. One is, if you're a bartender, you can go at 2 a.m. when you get off work. And the other is to go to a show there, and then you have to know it's there and just go upstairs to the 3rd floor. As soon as a bartender told me about this place, I went and got show tickets so that I could go up and check it out. And they begged me not to put them in the book. So I didn't, because there's no reason to make anyone unhappy. But I am here to tell you there is only one small playhouse on a tiny street in Rittenhouse.
Thank you for that tip.
Irene, you bring up a good point, and I so enjoyed all the tips, especially sort of about the eateries. One of the things that we are very conscious of and trying to help are the theaters, like Philadelphia Theater Company, the Philharmonic, all of whom are just suffering. And we have recently participated in the Philadelphia Theater Company's rendition of The Wolves, which is a virtual way of being able to go in and see what they do. And they have a new plan for 2021, I guess. Maybe it's even going to, I guess 2021. That you pay as you want to go. You pay as much as you can. So you can go in and you can reserve tickets, and then you download the link, and you can watch it from the convenience of your home for 48 hours after you download it. So, helping out the theaters and the arts is something that I really think we should be focusing on as well. But it seems like it's been so long since I've been down to Center City because of all this stuff. So we're up here in the suburbs. We just canceled our vacation this year because we can't fly anywhere. So it's just an interesting time. But we're going to get around this, and we'll be back to normal again soon, I hope. But thank you so much for everything you said. I've got to run myself for another call at noon, but I so enjoyed it. And you are such a vivacious presenter. Irene, thank you so very much. And Ben and Megan, thank you so for bringing this to us. Okay.
Yeah, I would just like to thank
you.
everybody for coming, Irene for doing another event, and also Megan for filling the chat with all the relevant websites. If anybody does want to stay and talk a little bit longer, we can do that. Or if anybody has another question or two. Otherwise,
don't end too fast. I want to read all these comments.
Yes. No, we can stay.
Okay.
I'll stop recording, and if
Okay.
anybody has any other questions. But thanks again, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for